Saratoga. The British general John Burgoyne celebrated Christmas in 1776 by placing a bet on the American Revolution. Burgoyne wagered 50 golden guineas that he could beat the Americans and be home victorious from America by Christmas Day 1777. This was a bold bet. To win it, Burgoyne would have to cross the Atlantic, crush the Revolution, and get back to London, all in 1 year. No secrets here. What made General John Burgoyne so confident about crushing the American Revolution? 2 words: the plan. Burgoyne had spent the past few months working out a detailed plan for winning the war. He presented the secret strategy to King George. The king loved it. So in the spring of 1777, Burgoyne loaded cases of champagne onto a ship — he always traveled in style — and set out across the ocean with high hopes. General Burgoyne arrived in Quebec, Canada in early May. As soon as he got off the boat, he started hearing people talk about his so-called secret strategy. The Quebec newspaper even had an article about it, describing exactly how Burgoyne planned to defeat the Americans. As usual in this war, neither side could keep anything secret. Burgoyne was annoyed, but not discouraged. So the Americans knew his plan? So what? That didn't mean they could stop him. The basic idea of the plan was simple. Slice the United States in two. This would be done by attacking the centrally located state of New York from the north and the south at the same time. Once the British controlled New York, all of New England would be cut off from the rest of the United States. The different regions wouldn't be able to help each other by sending soldiers or supplies back and forth. It would be like having an enemy's hand around your neck. The revolution would be strangled. So you can see here on page 109, if you look at that map, where the sword is, that is where New York is. So their plan is to attack New York from the north and the south and basically take control of New York so that they're not allowing soldiers to go through New York and help each other. Benedict Arnold to the rescue. Like everyone else, George Washington knew about Burgoyne's plan, but there was very little he could do. The British still had their main army, under the command of General William Howe, camped in and around New York City. Washington was worried that Howe would try to capture Philadelphia that year, so he had to keep his army nearby to prevent it. You can't just let the enemy capture your capital city, can you? A separate American army, known as the Northern Army, would have to stop Burgoyne's invasion. Washington couldn't send many soldiers to the Northern Army, but he could at least send one of his top generals. He picked a former merchant from Connecticut named Benedict Arnold. Arnold had already fought in many of the war's fiercest battles, and he was known for his attacking style and reckless bravery. Here's how one American soldier described Arnold's reputation in 1777. "He was our fighting general, and a bloody fellow he was. He didn't care for nothing. He'd ride right in. He was as brave a man as ever lived." True, Arnold was also known as perhaps the most annoying man in America. His loud, bossy style made him almost impossible to work with. But this was no time to worry about personality conflicts. Washington needed a fighter in northern New York, so he sent the best one. "We have one advantage over our enemy," Arnold said as he headed north. "It is our power to be free or nobly die in defense of liberty." Franklin's secret mission. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, Ben Franklin packed up a lunch, climbed into a carriage with his 2 grandsons, and set off on a picnic. A picnic, Ben? At a time like this? Don't worry. It was part of a secret plan to help win the revolution. The plan was based on a simple fact, sad but true. The United States could not win this war without help. George Washington might win a small battle here and there, but the Continental Army did not have enough soldiers, guns, and ships to defeat mighty Great Britain. What the Americans needed was a powerful ally. So Congress decided to try to persuade France to join forces with the United States. And Congress believed that 71-year-old Ben Franklin was the man to do the convincing. Franklin was famous and highly respected in France. They might just listen to him. But first, Franklin had to actually get to France. And with British spies snooping around every corner in Philadelphia, this was going to be a dangerous trip. If the British found out Franklin's plans, they would chase down his ship as it crossed the Atlantic Ocean. That would be the end of Ben Franklin. So Franklin and his 2 grandsons, William, age 17, and Benjamin, 7, rode out of town on an innocent little picnic. Then, when they saw they hadn't been followed, they drove the carriage to a small port on the Delaware River. All three of them climbed onto a waiting ship. 6 weeks later, they were safely in France. Well, think about it. Battered and exhausted by the rough sea journey, Franklin had no time to rest. He and the boys jumped into a carriage and hurried toward Paris, the French capital. The carriage was a miserable one, Franklin remembered, with tired horses, the evening dark, scarce a traveler but ourselves on the road. And the dark road was far from safe. The driver stopped near a wood where we were to pass through, to tell us that a gang of 18 robbers infested that wood, who but 2 weeks ago had murdered some travelers on that very spot. Luckily, Franklin managed to avoid the French bandits, but the British spy spotted him right away. David Stormont, the British ambassador to France, rushed to report to his bosses in London. "I learnt yesterday evening that the famous Dr. Franklin has arrived," wrote Stormont. "I cannot but suspect that he comes charged with a secret commission from the Congress. In a word, my lord, I look upon him as a dangerous engine." A few days later, young William Franklin went on an errand for his grandfather. He went to the French foreign minister's office and delivered a letter stating that Benjamin Franklin was here in Paris to negotiate a treaty of friendship between the United States and France. The official French reply was basically, "Well, we'll think about it." Sure, King Louis and friends were still bitter about losing the French and Indian War to their old enemy Britain. The French were definitely hungry for a little revenge. They didn't want to join this new war, though, unless they were sure the Americans could actually win it. And so far, the Americans had lost most of the big battles. French leaders decided to wait and see how the fighting went in 1777. Franklin settled in for a long stay in France. He couldn't accomplish much there until there was some good news from home.